Welcome back. A new year, new me.
It's a new year, new you. I like it. Yeah. It feels like it's been a minute.
Yeah, it has. I remember, I was telling Jill, you ever get like, I don't know if it's stress or sleep deprivation or a combination of the two, but like you get like your eye will twitch.
Oh, yeah.
That was happening before Christmas because it was like the house for the holidays, trying to plan out all of our podcasts for this, a couple of work things going on.
It's just busy.
Yeah. And then we had like some car things we were taking care of. So it was like, but yeah, it's been a minute. So,
and then it seems like things just like melt, or it's just like,
right.
It's like you got the whole year ahead of you.
That's
Not
right.
a lot going on.
It's all good. It's all good now. Yeah.
Great. Well, how was the holidays for you? Good Christmas in Arkansas?
Yeah, it was really good. Traveled there safely and back. And spent, it's a good time with the in-laws. Got some duck hunting in. We're actually going to duck hunt in a few days.
You got the preview.
Yeah.
And then you're going to cut right back at it.
So there's a cold front that's supposed to hit this week. So
is this the cold front that's like hitting everywhere? It's like all you see is like everywhere is going to be cold.
And my in-laws keep like, it's going to be real, like kind of warning us like, it's going to be cold when you're here. And we're like, That's the point. Like the cold pushes the ducks down, which is what attracts the duck hunters. So yeah.
Nice. Well, that's exciting. I don't have any travel plans. Family came to me over Christmas. It was good. Saw my mom and dad. Saw my father-in-law. Saw my sister. So it's all good stuff.
Yeah. All those people from Maine.
All those people that we
Did they bring any moose along with them?
No. No, it did not fit in the carry-on. Maybe next time.
Any notable gifts you got for Christmas?
You got to see in action. This is a teaser for maybe a short or a reel coming out.
Yeah.
Got some of these handheld portable mics kind of thing
that connect to phones.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So
we talked about upping our short game a little bit in the next year. So maybe they'll come. In use. Yeah.
Lock your cars, people.
Lock your cars.
So that was really cool. I got some pickleball stuff. I got some Lakers branded pickleball.
Okay.
Played. It was actually pretty fun. My father-in-law was really good at pickleball. He has played like tennis like all his life, and has turned to pickleball. And so he was showing me the ropes a little bit too.
Yeah. Is Leanne good? Did it genetically transfer down or no?
She's a machine.
Okay.
She's a machine. So we were able to play a little bit. That was kind of fun. I was like, I need to play more pickleball in 2025. That would be good.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. But And what about you? What gifts did you get? Probably nothing cool.
No, maybe something really cool.
I think I have an idea.
One of the things I got cool from Lydia was this stamp with my family crest and
is cool.
The name Mott. So like we can do like a wax seal.
Ooh.
So
I expect like the only way you communicate with people. Like you just have to give your stamp of approval.
Yeah. I just write letters and seal it and stamp it. So I got that. That was actually before we left. So we do like a little family Christmas. And then this has actually been on my it's just kind of one of those things. Like I saw it and I put it on my I just keep like a little wish list for Juju because that's what she asked for.
Okay.
And it's been on there for a couple of years, but it finally happened that this year I got this Lord of the Rings.
Is that leather bound?
It's leather. So this is, I know that you don't know, but for you and those who don't know, this is the design on the doors to the Mines of Moria.
Can I read this? I've been actually brushing up on my Elvish. Can I read that?
Oh yeah. You can read that. Go ahead and read that for everyone.
This book is a waste of time. No, this is really nice, and this is not hundreds of years old. It's just made to look hundreds. Or this is old.
Yeah, it's made to look really old. It's got this clasp on
cool.
it, and then it has this.
Oh, it's a journal.
It's like a
Oh, cool. I didn't know if it was like the Lord of the Rings book, like in that form. But that's cool.
It's blank inside, like old. Feels like vellum type.
Yeah. Oh,
leather.
That's cool.
Yeah, or parchment. So. I got to figure out how I'm going to use this because you don't like just write mundane. Like, let me put a grocery list in this.
That would be great. Just grocery list.
Yeah.
It's got to be something good.
Yeah. So we got to figure out what we're going to do. My mother-in-law suggested like putting words of wisdom in here to pass down to my daughters or something.
Cool. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do that. We'll see.
Nice. I like that. Good visual. New Year, Christmas, everything.
Yeah.
The sermon this morning.
Yeah, it was kind of based on the new year. I think that was kind of the starting point. Was Danny preaching this morning?
Yeah.
And was centered around Moses and the Passover, because the Passover changed their calendar, just like Jesus changed our calendar.
That's a cool parallel coming the year. So get excited. We are going to go to Exodus 12. So let's go ahead and take it to the next level. From the heart of the Low Country in South Carolina,
it's the Take Two podcast, where we take theology to the next level. Okay, a New Year's Day to Remember title of the sermon comes, Exodus 12, and we're going to kind of go a little bit through some of the history of the Old Testament. But then, and I was even thinking while he was preaching, it's like, Paul talks about this in 1 Corinthians.
And then he was like, and then he brought it there. That's great.
So we'll end up in 1 Corinthians, but 10 plagues. I think most people know that.
You want to name the 9 plagues or 10 plagues real quick in order from memory?
Yes. The blood, darkness, hail. Yeah. I don't know that they're in memory, in order. I think we could probably piece them together. Yeah. But not in order.
Yeah.
But So, and the cool thing about this, I think we mentioned this before, is all of the plagues were against some form of the Egyptian god.
Corresponds. Yeah. It's really sending a message that they will know that I am the Lord. Right. And it's great.
Yeah. Showing his dominance over there. I think Heiser probably has talked about that a little bit, the cosmic geography.
If there's a question about something, you text Clay and he's like, Heiser talked about this.
Yeah. Speaking of, one of Chloe's friends she graduated with, I guess he listens to the podcast now.
Wow.
And he said it's Nephilim, not Nephilim. And I was like, well, I've heard it. I've
heard it both ways.
I've heard it lots of different ways from knowledgeable people. Yeah. I don't know. I'd like to have, but anyways. All right, so we had those 9 plagues, and then we get the instructions for the Passover. And starting off those instructions, Exodus 12:2 says, "This month shall be the beginning of months for you. It is to be the first month of the year to you." So that's God is saying, boom, so it wasn't, Gregor looking back and changing the calendar in light of this. God's like, this is going to,
I like that. Make it memorable, something that's going to be repetitive. Not just repetitive, but this is the first month of the year. You'll be hitting this very frequently, very often, reflecting on this.
Yeah.
And then Danny kind of brings us back and, has us talk. It's not all sunshine, rainbows. Right. It was a tough sledding at the beginning. People were mad at Moses. He angered Pharaoh. Their workload increased. We kind of just, we're like, oh, Passover's here. It's all great. But that's not where they were feeling probably.
Yeah, and I thought he made a good point about, they were angry and upset at Moses, what Moses had done, because it had increased their workload. And we can, through anachronistic eyes go, it's going to get better.
It worked out.
Why are you grumbling? But they didn't know how it was going to end at the time. And I think, a point for us is we've got the rest of Revelation. We know how it's going to end, and sometimes we still grumble and complain too. We know that, so good point for us to think about.
And then Danny covered the first 13 verses. You want us to go ahead and read that? You want to just give an overview? What do you think is best?
Either way, I think maybe we can give an overview. So these are the first 13 verses of Exodus 12, and they are the instructions for the Passover. Kind of the key things, and maybe we can scroll and kind of pick them out. They're going to choose a lamb that's pure, spotless, unblemished, that's been watched for, I think, 7 days. They're going to sacrifice that lamb. They're going to take that lamb's blood, put it over the outside doorpost. They're going to cook this lamb, not boil it, not do anything else, but they're going to roast it over fire. All of it has to be consumed. So I don't know if it's here or other places where it's like, if you don't have enough, join 2 small families together.
That's right, yeah.
If you have leftover, you need to burn it.
Just burn it all,
Be ready to travel.
Yeah, get those loins girded, get those sandals on. Let's make some haste.
There's some bitter herbs that are along with this, and unleavened bread. And I guess, I don't know, have you heard Danny's point today was you don't have time to leaven it. You don't have time to wait for it to rise. I have not heard that it doesn't tell us explicitly why it needs to be unleavened. Sometimes leaven is associated with sin. So I've heard that.
There's like this picture. And I've heard both ways where I think most people, like if they're reading into the leaven, they're just connecting it with hurry. Like it's not like with the leaven, but having your sandals on. So you got to be ready to go anyway. I don't know. But I think I'm trying to scroll through. I think you hit all the big points well, what the process, what that would look like. And if you followed those steps, you'd be passed over, aka Passover.
Yeah, the angel of the Lord's going to troll about and see, basically observe. And if you have the blood on the outpost, then you're good. He passes over. And if you're not, then the firstborn in that household dies. And I always wondered how that worked. Like, if you were a firstborn parent, would you and your firstborn child die in that house?
Wow, I've never thought about that. Yeah, that's a good one to chew on. Something else? Go.
I always thought, I was the baby of the family. So
come off the hook.
Well, yeah. I was a firstborn biologically for my father, though, but the baby of my mom. Yeah. So maybe
Yeah, that's one to think on. Something else to think on. Danny made the point that at this point, Israel, their identity. I'm going back to Abraham. There were people called by God,
right?
And now after this, there'll be a people who are delivered by God. God really marking this huge, line in the same. I mean, you read anywhere else in Scripture.
Right.
We're going back to the Exodus pretty frequently, just remembering this.
Yeah, and then there are a couple places scattered where God is angry or He's predicting His wrath, and He's like, "I'm going to do all these terrible things to you because," and to put it in Danny's words, "you are delivered people who failed to pay homage to your deliverer, but because you are also a called people, I'm not going to destroy you utterly." And that kind of plays into what we talked about a little bit a couple weeks ago in Romans as well. And there's leavening there too. Once the dough was holy, then the holy dough, the whole thing is holy. Yeah.
And again, this deliverance, this is the new calendar. This is what they're going to order their life and their year around. This Passover. And we got everything we hit: the unblemished lamb, blood, lamb, bread, travel, ready to head out. I like this point because I think it is a good thing to consider that, when you read in the text, Moses writes that a mixed multitude left Egypt. I think presumably at this time, Egypt was a pretty big world power that they probably spanned, up towards like Syria, down into Africa. And we know Moses married probably a Cushite woman. And so Egyptians may have lived with them, maybe some people from all over the place presumably would have gone with them in some capacity.
Yeah, and so you have this mixed multitude leaving, and some of them were actually the cause of some problems later on because they were complaining while they were wandering the deserts. But
I think it's a good lesson that it's like, relationship with God is on theological grounds, both good and bad, where we always point to Aaron really messed up with the golden calf, and his kids really messed up with the false fire, but also mixed multitudes, like both good and both bad. You keep reading on in Exodus 12, and they talk about the sojourner. Hey, you treat just like a native, you know.
I always wonder how much did Aaron know that he was really stepping out of line? Like, was he? I've heard some theologians speculate that he thought that he was making this calf that was representative of.
That's my understanding
Yahweh,
too.
That he thought he was helping.
Yeah, it might be the same thing. I can't remember the text off the top of my head with a strange fire, where maybe they thought they were doing some, like worshiping God in some way, and it's like that's not what God said to do. So probably the same kind of thing. Even good intentions are like Uzzah, but bad obedience.
Right. Yeah. Bad obedience. All right. So we know that they leave. They're led a little bit of ways out of Egypt by this pillar of fire, cloud pillar during the day and night, and then they, famously they get up to the Red Sea or the Sea of Reeds. There's some discussion about where that is exactly, but they get pinned against this. Pharaoh changes his mind, pursues them. The cloud kind of keeps Pharaoh at bay while the Red Sea is open, and they cross. And it takes them 3 days to get across, all of them.
Yeah, that's something. A lot of people
could be a long distance. We don't really know. Yeah.
I wonder what the terrain is like on the seabed, like how much, I don't know the Red Sea, the topography very well, but I just wonder, maybe there's like a big hill here or whatever.
Yeah. So then, just recounting, most of this stuff, we're kind of rehearsing just to remind us. The Red Sea comes in, destroys Pharaoh's army. Shortly after that, Moses gets the 10 Commandments. We know what that looks like from the movie. They had a video camera there. And then as we were talking about, the Israelites during this time really fall into sin. Paul would say they sat down to eat and drink, and then they got up to play. Kind of some innuendo there, suggestive language.
When fast forward, Numbers 14, we're on the precipice of the promised land. We're just, not that far away from actually crossing into it. The spies go out, and majority of them bring back this bad report, which results in pretty a lot of wandering for a long time, 40 years.
Yeah, and none of their clothing wears out. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
40 years, I mean, they just don't make shoes like that anymore.
It's not like they used to. Wow, that's great. Yeah, it's for all their complaining. I mean, their clothes held up. Yeah.
I think the big picture here, if we step back, is we see God shepherding his called out people away from all the ites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, because we know both from the word and from historical records how bad those cultures were.
Yeah.
So God's insulating his people from them. Clearly, they are influenced a little bit by the Egyptians, but the Egyptians don't have a lot to do with them, because the Egyptians don't like people who raise cattle and sheep. That's an anathema to them.
Yeah.
So God's allowing this nation to grow.
Yeah.
And then bringing them out into the desert. But this first generation, they're not ready to be followers. And I think God chose them that through these 12 bad spies, the spies that give them a bad report.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I'm trying to think going back to thinking about this, mixed multitude of other nations. So Jacob, this is too much potato. We can run through this fast, but Jacob, Israel, 12 sons, Judah and Simeon, they married Canaanites. Joseph married an Egyptian. Then it's just interesting how it's like the separation, but then God works in ways with like Rahab and stuff in his mercy. But you see like all these nations, it's like they're distinct, but yet pretty diverse at the same time. But you're right. It's like, even though they had all the right answers, Judges comes and they do everything that's right in their own eyes.
Yeah. So he does grow them. He gets rid of that generation that's so influenced by Egypt. Now that next generation goes in, but, like you just alluded to, they still mess it up, and they get into this sin deliverance cycle that we've talked about before.
Wow. And so Danny continues to talk about some Old Testament. We're really getting a broad overview. I think it would do us well. We can skip ahead to how does this apply for us today? Because that's the Old Testament.
Right,
we're not Jews. How do we make this work for us? And I guess we're pretty fortunate because Paul does, I got you.
Paul does the work for us.
Yeah.
And it's inspired, so we can trust it. So this is 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 14. Probably we should read this. I had some stuff underlined and bolded just because, as Danny was talking through it, that he was kind of landing on those things. So I'll try to, with my voice, do that.
The audiobook voice of acclaim.
Right. It says, "For I do not want you to be unaware, brethren, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and all ate the same spiritual food," talking about the manna, "and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they were drinking from a spiritual rock." And we made this connection between the image of Christ, which followed them, and the rock was Christ. "Nevertheless, with most of them, God was not well pleased, for they were laid low in the wilderness. Now these things happened as examples for us." Key phrase there. "So that we would not crave evil things as they also craved. Do not be idolaters, as some of them were. As is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and stood up to play. Nor let us act immorally, as some of them did. And 23,000 fell in one day. Nor let us try the Lord, as some of them did, and were destroyed by the serpents. Nor grumble, as some of them did, and were destroyed by the destroyer." So there's more history there that we did not cover, but Paul is alluding to different acts of rebellion and the consequences that they had. Paul continues, "Now these things," kind of repeating himself, "happened to them as an example, but they were written for our instruction, upon whom the ends of the ages have come." And so then this is the bold point. Therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed that he does not fall. No temptation has overtaken you, but such as is common to man. And God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will provide the way of escape also, so that you will be able to endure it. Therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry.
Wow, that is good. I like your voice did the trick where, if you're listening, examples is mentioned a couple times in there where, the point is clear that one of the main reasons these things happened, or these things happened as examples for us, that we would do well to reflect on, lest we think that, we got everything covered. Right. These dumb Israelites don't know what's going on. When they say things like, I wish I was back in Egypt. They grumbled and complained. We oftentimes, I think, similarly kind of, it wasn't so hard back then, or we're grumbling and complaining. I feel like we all do that a lot.
Yeah. All right. So God built in reminders for them and for us. And so we need to heed those reminders. So the kind of question is, what maybe perhaps in our own lives do we need to change? Look back at, what they were saying, I wish I was back in Egypt, or, we don't have meat, we only have this bread. What kind of lies are we believing when we grumble and complain, or we crave after those idols that we might have?
Yeah, I think that's good. And we can even jump a few chapters beforehand to 1 Corinthians 5, verses 7 and 8, when he'll write here, clean out the old leaven so that you may be a new lump, just as you are in fact unleavened. For Christ, our Passover, also has been sacrificed. Therefore, let us celebrate the feast, not with old leaven, nor with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. And so Paul, again, you see the word Passover in there, Christ, our Passover. There's some celebration, but we need to do that in the right way, that sincerity and truth, not with that malice and wickedness.
Yeah, that's great. And then for us at CBC, communion is the first Sunday of every month. This was the first Sunday in January. So, Danny purposely starts turning this sermon towards looking at the communion table. And so the verses that I just left off, I'm going to repeat that phrase.
I think that's important. Yeah, it's like 10 just keeps on scrolling.
Yeah, so I'll repeat that phrase about fleeing idolatry, and then it goes into looking at the communion. It says, therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry. I speak as to wise men. You judge what I say. Is not the cup of blessing which we bless a sharing in the blood of Christ? Is not the bread which we break a sharing in the body of Christ? Since there is one bread, we who are many are one body, for we all partake of the one bread. Look at the nation Israel. Are not those who eat the sacrifices sharers in the altar? What do I mean then? That a thing sacrificed to idols is nothing, or that an idol is anything? So, again, this is taken out of a larger context. Those last two phrases are kind of going back to that larger context. But the main point is that, since we have one cup, one bread, we're all sharers in that one body, so we should be unified. Yeah,
great unity. This is another aside. We were doing communion today. You probably did not notice this because you were leading worship.
Oh, no, I noticed.
Did you notice this? You know what I'm talking about?
The very loud crunching?
Oh.
Is that what you're talking about?
No, there is always very loud crunching. Oh. You might have done this on purpose, actually. Like everyone, the people handing out communion will come to the front, and then we'll, hand off the plates to Danny, and then we'll all look at each other and be like, okay, we'll take a seat. As soon as we sat down, you're like, everyone stand. And so we were like down and then up.
We all stand. We were
standing, then we were down, then we came right back up. Like it was like in sync, like, all right, sit. And you're like, everyone stand. It was great.
I didn't want to distract. Well, I was waiting for a time in the song where I could talk.
Oh, gotcha.
Because there's a little interlude there before the bridge.
It's great keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, literally on your toes. No, but I thought, it was powerful enough.
It was good. No, it was good. I like standing, and I like the, flow of it where it's like crescendoing, So that's great. And we make Danny makes the other application. What we celebrate matters. Key point in that is you should be celebrating something. We all probably are. What do you celebrate? Right. Do you have purposeful things set up in your life that you celebrate to focus your mind on the things that matter?
No, that's good. That's good. Recognize the struggle in the wilderness. So there are going to be times that we don't do as well how do we get out of that wilderness? I think we get out by submitting ourselves to God and, trying to get into the quote unquote promised land for us as believers. And then last one, you want to...
Fellowship with Christ, our passion and celebration. I like that, as we go through the sermon, there's like two sides of everything, the struggle in the wilderness, but man, celebration, and that celebration is not individual, but fellowship. This is a great, great point of unity. We have this passion, this magnificent obsession we sang about in worship. It's like, man, that's a cause for great, great fellowship.
Yep. All right. First sermon in the new year. Anything else to add?
Dude, it was great. Get back in the swing of things. Next week, we're back to Romans.
Romans 12.
All right.
That's our take.
Thanks for listening to Take Two. Find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube for those who want to watch our video cast.